Hello, my little friends. Are you ready for a super fun story today? It's about a king who was told something very special about his future when he was just a teeny tiny baby. He tried so hard to prove it wrong, but guess what? His future found him in the silliest way possible. Let's jump right in.
Okay, so our story is all about a king with the longest, funniest name you've ever heard. Just look at it. Wow, that's a real mouthful, isn't it? Phew. But you know what? We don't have to say all that big, long name. Everybody just called him by a super cool nickname, the Tiger King. And that name is the most important part of our story.
So, why the Tiger King? Good question. Well, it all goes back to the day he was born. Some very wise men came to tell his future, and they said something that would turn his whole life into one big adventure.
So, picture this. The baby prince is born, and these wise astrologers come to see him. They look at the stars and say, this baby will one day die. Well, everyone dies one day, right? That's not a very special prediction, is it? But wait, that wasn't all they had to say.
Right then, just as everyone was shrugging their shoulders, a miracle happened. A little voice spoke up, and can you guess who it was? It was the baby, the teeny tiny 10-day-old baby prince. Can you imagine? Everyone was so surprised, they just froze. And the baby spoke again in a clear, squeaky voice. He said, "Hey, over here, it was me talking. A talking baby. How funny is that?" He was talking right to the wise men. Nobody could believe their ears.
And you know what? This wasn't just any talking baby. He was a super smart talking baby. He said, okay, I know I'll die someday, but how? Tell me how it's going to happen. And because he asked so smartly, the head astrologer had to tell him the big secret. So the wise man leaned in and said, "You were born under the star of the bull, and you know who is the enemy of the bull? The tiger. So your death will come from a tiger." Ooh, from a tiger. That sounds pretty scary, doesn't it?
Now, did the baby prince get scared? Did he start to cry? No way. The minute he heard the word tiger, he let out a little grrr and said, "Let tigers beware." Can you believe it? He was ready for a fight right from his cradle.
And that's just what he did. When that little prince grew up into a big, strong king, he never forgot what the wise men said. He decided, I'm going to show them. I'm going to prove that prediction wrong. So he made a great big promise to himself. He would hunt 100 tigers.
And he got really serious about it. He told everyone, nobody can hunt tigers except for me. He even stopped doing his important king stuff until he reached his goal. And when he ran out of tigers in his own kingdom, guess what he did? He married a princess just because her kingdom had more tigers. All he could think about was getting to 100. So for years and years, the king kept hunting. 1 tiger, 10 tigers, 50 tigers, until finally he had done it. He had hunted 99 tigers. 99! He was so close. He just needed 1 more tiger. But there was a big problem. Where was that last tiger? He looked everywhere, but all the forests were empty. The king started to get worried, and then he got really grumpy. And when the king is grumpy, everyone around him gets very nervous.
Now the king's main helper, his Diwan, was super scared of the grumpy king. He thought, I have to find a tiger right now. So he came up with a plan, and oh boy, was it a silly one.
The Diwan had a sneaky idea. He went to a park in another city and found a very old, very sleepy tiger. Then, he secretly brought the old tiger to the forest and let it go, hoping the king would find it. What a tricky plan!
And it worked. The next day, the sleepy old tiger walked right past the king. The king was overjoyed. He took his aim, bang, and the tiger fell over. "Hooray!" shouted the king. "I did it! I hunted the 100th tiger." He was so happy he went off to plan a huge party.
But hold on a second. After the happy king left, the other hunters went to look at the tiger, and they saw something that made their eyes go wide with surprise. Something was not right at all.
Can you believe it? The king had missed. The bullet just went whoosh right past the tiger. The poor old tiger was so startled by the loud noise that it had fainted. It was just taking a nap. The hunters knew the king would be furious, so they kept it a secret and made sure the king thought he had really won.
So, the king went on believing he was the greatest tiger hunter ever.
He thought he had won and was totally safe. He finally relaxed and started playing with his little son. But remember that prediction? It hadn't forgotten about him.
It was the little prince's birthday, and the king bought him a special toy, a wooden tiger. But this toy wasn't very smooth, and while the king was playing with his son, a tiny, tiny little piece of the wood poked his hand. Ouch, a little splinter.
He didn't think it was a big deal, just a little poke. But the next day, his hand got all owy and puffy. The little ouchie got bigger and bigger, and it spread all the way up the king's arm. The brave king was in big trouble from a little wooden toy.
The best doctors in the kingdom came to help. They did a big operation, but when they finished, they said something very, very strange. They said, the operation was successful. The Maharaja is dead. So, the 100th tiger finally got him. It wasn't a big, real tiger. It was the little wooden one. The prediction came true after all.
Wow, what a surprising end. So, what does this funny but a little sad story really teach us? Well, it shows that no matter how big and powerful you are, you can't always control everything. And sometimes, the tiniest little things are the most important. It's kind of like we had a secret, wasn't it? We knew the king didn't really get that last tiger, but he never found out. He walked around thinking he was the big winner, but we knew the truth. It was that tiny little splinter from the toy tiger that was the real winner in the end.
The Tiger King spent his whole life trying so hard to fight his future, but in the end, all his power couldn't stop a tiny little ouchie. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe it's better to just be happy and play today instead of worrying all the time about tomorrow. What a fun story. Thanks for listening, everyone.